So in structuring your business, some key things that you need to keep in mind in order to protect not only your business, but you, most important, because that's why we start business entities in the first place, is knowing how to structure it, what state to structure it in, whether you're going to be an LLC or a corporation or a partnership, and then also what are the governing documents. And all of this is very fact specific. It could be totally different from a therapist, say in Texas, as opposed to a tech company that wants to go public. So let me drill down on that a little further. The therapist in Texas, first of all, you got to figure out, is a therapist, what kind of license do they have in Texas? Does it need to be a professional type of entity? You'll have a professional limited liability company or a professional corporation, or can they just be a limited liability company or a regular corporation? You would go, you figure that out. And then also, what's appropriate? Just generally, is it a limited liability company? Is it a corporation? What are the pros and cons of picking each? I'd say for most people, a limited liability company is appropriate. Now, what state would you form it in? Some states, you don't have to disclose who the owners of the company are. And some clients value anonymity. There may be reasons why they don't want it in the public record showing who the owners of that company are. And you can elect to form the LLC in a state where there's a level of anonymity, and there's different tricks that I know, different ways to structure it that are all completely legit that keep things anonymous. Now let's go back to the tech company. So the tech company wants to go public, and they're probably going to have rounds of investment, things like that. A lot of investors want to see a corporation, and they like to see it incorporated in Delaware. A lot of investors know Delaware law. They've seen Delaware doc. They like something that they're familiar with. And so a strategy there would be Delaware C Corp, set it up so you can get investment, which also implicates securities laws. So now we're bringing in a different area of the law, a different specialty, and there need to be disclosures and things like that. And you need to contemplate all this when setting up the ownership structure. Now you need to also think, like building off the investors, let's go back to how many owners are there generally? Obviously, with this tech company, you're going to have a lot of owners, right? And they may have different rights and obligations. That's all spelled out in the shareholder agreement or by the nature of the type of entity you're forming. But I'm going to go back to this LLC. So let's say it's a smaller company. They never intend on going public. We're operating in Texas. It's just a construction company. But there's going to be 2, maybe 3, 4 owners. In that case, it's really important to have an operating agreement. In Texas, we call it a company agreement that spells out the rights and obligations of the partners. I can't tell you how often I get a client come into me and there's a dispute. I have several of them pending right now where there's a dispute between the partners. The first thing I'm going to want to see is the operating agreement. Who decides to control the company? Is it 51%? Is it a supermajority at 66%? Does something require unanimous consent? All this is spelled out in the operating agreement. All this is contemplated in advance. And if you're just pulling a form off online or you're going to ChatGPT, it's not going to account for these nuances. I have a video that I've made, and you can check it out for more detail. It's called The Three-Legged Stool of Operating Agreements, and it talks about these 3 main things that you want to consider when you're doing your operating or partnership agreement. And that's ownership and control, it's restrictive covenants, and it's transfer restrictions. Transfer restrictions being you want to do business with the people you've contracted to do business with. You don't want to end up doing business, have your partner be your former partner's wife or kids or something like that. And again, all those things can be spelled out, and it's great to have a business attorney that not only does corporate work, but that does litigation work and sees these disputes arise and has for a number of years. I think for me, it's been about 15 years where I've seen real life examples of disputes arise because either a provision wasn't in the operating agreement or it wasn't drafted properly or some nuance of that.